Teachers are expected to differentiate instruction in order to meet the needs of all students in inclusive classrooms. However, without a clear framework for doing so, that can be easier said than done. Hi, I'm Julia Ferrari. I'm an expert on learning disabilities and education at the LD Institute, and I'm passionate about ensuring that students with LDs reach their full potential. Today, I'm going to explain the ADAPT strategy for differentiating instruction. The 5-step ADAPT strategy, developed by Nancy Hutchison and outlined in the textbook Inclusion of Learners with Exceptionalities in Canadian Schools, is a systematic strategy for adapting or differentiating teaching to meet students' needs in inclusive classrooms. You can use this strategy to facilitate planning as well as improve the reach of your instruction. A. Account for students' strengths and needs. First, identify students' current academic, social, emotional, and physical abilities. In order to get a clear picture of a student's strengths and needs, we look to documentation. This includes school records, individualized education plans or IEPs, as well as psychoeducational assessments. Discussions with students, their parents, as well as any other professionals who support the students are also a good source of information. Finally, teachers can conduct screening assessments at the beginning, middle, and end of the school year to collect information about students' skills in specific areas. D. Demands of the classroom. Next, consider all of the demands, social, emotional, behavioral, and academic, that are placed on the student in the classroom. Here are some things to consider. Does learning take place with the whole group, small group, peer support, or individually? How long is teacher-led instruction? How many instructions or steps are students expected to follow at once? What teaching materials are used, for example, audio visuals or books, etc.? Are texts at an appropriate reading level? What is the physical layout of the classroom? Think about the floor space, desk positioning, and so on. How do students demonstrate their learning? For example, through tests, written reports, oral reports, drawings, and so on. A. Adaptations. Next, compare students' learning needs to the demands of the classroom. Identify potential mismatches and identify ways to eliminate these mismatches by teaching through the mismatch or by bypassing the mismatch. Teach through a mismatch. Strategies for teaching through a mismatch allow students to participate in classroom instruction and access the curriculum along with their peers. Here are some examples. Flexible groups. Group students based on ability, interest, or some other characteristics. Provide choice. For example, choice in terms of how they will learn or how they will demonstrate their learning. Chunk or break tasks down into small parts. Make it relevant. For example, making the connection between what is being taught and the student's real life. Repetition. Practice and repetition help students master new skills. Bypassing a mismatch. There are 2 ways to bypass a mismatch. 1. Teaching around a mismatch. These types of strategies allow students to succeed using alternate means, for example, a calculator, spell check, or Braille. When selecting strategies to teach around a mismatch, it is important to consider instructional goals. For example, for students who struggle with computation, having access to a calculator would be appropriate if the instructional goal is problem solving. It's also important to note that some adaptations may be useful for all students and can be made available to everyone. 2. Teaching to overcome a mismatch. A mismatch can be remediated by providing supplemental instruction or intervention to help students master skills they struggle with or to acquire new skills. On the other hand, for students who are gifted or high achieving, we can overcome a mismatch by providing enrichment, such as independent study, which can allow them to delve deeper into a topic that interests them. P. Perspectives and consequences. Next, reflect critically on possible adaptations and consider them from the perspective of all stakeholders: teachers, students, peers, and parents. Choose an adaptation that is a good fit, simple, and effective. Consider if the adaptation will benefit one, many, or even all students. Ensure it is age appropriate and that it helps the student feel competent, connected, and autonomous. Ask yourself, what are the intended and unintended consequences of implementing this adaptation? T. Teach and assess the match. Finally, commit to trying a strategy for a certain amount of time, for example, 3 to 4 weeks. reflect, observe, get feedback from students and other stakeholders about how well the adaptation has matched students' strengths and needs to classroom demands. Consider how engaged the student is due to the adaptation. If after implementing a strategy you find that it is not effective, use this framework to select another one. Whether you teach in elementary, high school, adult education, or post-secondary education, you can adapt instruction to meet your students' needs.